Greetings, everyone, and welcome to America in Focus, powered by the Center Square. I'm Dan McCaleb, Chief Content Officer at Franklin News Foundation, publisher of the Center Square Newswire service. We are recording this on Friday, November 1st. That means the November 5th general election is just days away. Joining me to discuss the presidential race is Casey Harper, Washington, D.C. Bureau Chief for the Center Square. Casey, just a few days out, where do things stand?
Dan, this is a unique and very tight election. I mean, we've been talking about it for weeks on this show, but here we are. Election day is here. Every day there's some new development, some new potential scandal or gaffe that could move the needle. And the reason we're focusing on those gaffes so much is because the race is so close. In fact, it's gotten even more close since we last talked. Nationally, Vice President Kamala Harris, her lead has dwindled down to maybe less than a point, depending on which poll you look at, maybe about a point. Earlier, just a month or two ago, it was about a 3-point lead. Now, that's pretty interesting because while, of course, the popular vote does not select the president, it does give us a window into how close the race will be. And some analysts were saying that Kamala Harris has to win, the popular vote by maybe 3 points to win the election, which is pretty interesting. So nationally, the race has gotten even closer, which could be a good sign for Trump, actually. And then in these swing states, what's interesting is it's kind of good and bad for Trump or Kamala, because Trump is doing well or has a slight majority lead in all 7 of the closest swing states, But there are some states where Trump really has to win to get his path forward. Pennsylvania in particular is one. I mean, it's not impossible for Trump to become president without winning Pennsylvania, but most analysts say that is a really important state for him. And here we are, and it is as close as it can be, a total toss-up. And so where are we then? We are just a couple of days out. No one knows who's going to win, and the race could not be tighter.
So you referenced the swing states. Those obviously are going to be the key to the electoral votes that are needed for one or the other to secure the White House. Trump holds slight leads according to Real Clear Politics polling average in all of those swing states, but every single one of them are within the margin of error. So literally, this could go either way, correct?
It could, and actually recent polling has shown maybe those swing states aren't even as much all in Trump's favor. I mean, before they were basically tied, but Trump had very slight leads. But if you look, actually Harris has made a little bit of a gain in Michigan and Wisconsin. She's, now the same averages are showing the same lead actually for Harris, and Trump is not winning all 7 anymore. That's a brand new update. I misspoke there because now I'll just lay them out for you. Arizona, he's up by 2.4, which is a good margin. Pennsylvania, he's up by 0.3, which is, a toss-up. What is that? That doesn't mean anything. That just means we're going to find out on Tuesday, hopefully, who's going to win that state. This is important, though. North Carolina, he's up by 1.4. He's had some steady success there, and that's a really important state for Trump. Georgia, he's up by 2.6. That's a pretty good lead. But Michigan, Harris is up by 0.8, and Wisconsin, she's up by 0.3. Let's see. And then the other states, Nevada, Trump has up by almost a point. And the other states, kind of once used to be swing states, or some people always hope. People always say Texas is going to go blue, but Trump's up by 7 points there. Trump's up by 7 points in Ohio. You remember, Dan, it used to be that if you won Florida and Ohio, you were the president. But Trump's going to win both of those, almost unless something crazy happens. New Mexico and Virginia, Harris is slated to win those by about 6 or 7 points. So, in Minnesota as well, she's up by 5. So, Harris has made some gains in the swing states, but Trump has made gains in the national polling. I think what this boils down to is it's too close to call. As long as these swing states are this close, Dan, it's going to be all about turnout on Tuesday.
Yeah, you're right about that, Casey. And we reported just last night that nearly 63 million voters have already cast ballots. There's such a hyper-focus on November 5th, Election Day. But of course, with the expansion of early voting and mail-in voting across the country, a large percent of voters have already cast their ballots, Casey. You also referenced, you hope we know Tuesday night. Do you really expect to know Tuesday night who the winner of this election is?
No. If it's a runaway win, then we will know. But
there's no indication that there's going to be a runaway win here.
No, there's not. But the polls have been so off in these Trump elections that it's still possible. Trump, for instance, in 2020, as he referenced on a recent podcast, I think he was down by 17 points in Wisconsin was the consensus. And he ended up only losing Wisconsin by like 1 point, right? So, the polls are important. They give us an idea of trends, but they can be off by 17 points in a swing state, and so we just had some humility when we approach it. To your point about the early voting, we're seeing this is the new era of voting unless the laws are changed. The amount of early voting has been huge, and actually some good signs for Republicans because they've seen a unusually high number of early voting ballots from registered Republicans, which bodes really well actually for Trump. Historically, Democrats have won the early vote, but Republicans do well on election day. But it may be that this election changes that because Republicans are voting more, it seems, in early voting. Now, the question is, are they just transferring their votes from election day to early voting? And so it's just a net zero, or are there more Republicans voting overall? And we're seeing that in the early voting, and we'll see it on election day. That's the big question.
Speaking of election day, Casey, me, you, and the entire Center Square staff will be working the elections across the country. You from Washington, D.C., and we have staff in all 4 continental U.S. time zones, so listeners can follow our coverage at thecentersquare.com. Thank you for joining us today. Get out there and vote.